It's time to step into the Coming Out Lounge, a cool, safe space to be true to your sexual self. With your host, Rick Clemens. Rick has helped hundreds of people come out of the closet, and now each week he's bringing you cool insights for loving and accepting yourself, boosting your self-confidence, and living a guilt-free, purpose-filled life on the other side of the closet doors. Cuddle up with yourself and get ready for heartwarming coming out stories, ideas for living authentically, and tips for being fully self-expressed. Now here's your host, Coming Out Coach Rick.
Hey, closet dwellers and closet busters. It is time once again for the Coming Out Lounge. And sometimes we've heard the phrase, life imitates art, but sometimes art imitates life. And that's exactly where we are going today on the Coming Out Lounge, to a place where art takes us into the provocative life of, some people that I've got to know in a cool little film called The Victorians. So our guest Dwight Gabbert has created this film, and it's kind of this celebration of homosexuality in the LGBT world. And he's currently living in Amsterdam. He's brought this film to life from there. And let me tell you, when I watched this, I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. It's very different from the norms that we would expect in the LGBT world, but it's also bringing up some really controversial stuff like gay fetish clubs, gay marriage, and some of the normal journeys that we face struggling to come to terms with our own sexuality. So before I give everything away, let's just go ahead and bring Dwight on straight from Amsterdam. Hey, Dwight, thanks for being here with us on the Coming Out Lounge today, buddy.
Nice, man. Nice, Rick. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And, when I first got contacted by one of your team about this, I thought, I don't know if this is it. And then when I watched the trailer and everything, I'm like, okay, I'm totally intrigued. I'm hooked. So let's just start. You brought this thing to life. You've done some other really interesting work as well. But what was the driver behind bringing the Victorians to life for you?
I think the real driver was just living here in Amsterdam for whatever reason. Yeah, the people that I know sort of gravitated towards people that live on the fringe. And it's always fascinated me, just people who are able to walk that razor's edge like a snail on the straight razor, not too fast, not too slow. Otherwise, there's going to be blood sort of thing going on with people living in life and the choices that we're making. Some of them dark, some of them good. So we wanted to tell a story that sort of encapsulated these sorts of choices that are made from some characters who are very flawed and sort of collide and clash into one another in the city of Amsterdam.
Right. Well, and I like it because it is about some characters that, as you said, are very flawed, but I think it brings forward this piece of how all of us as humans are very flawed in our own ways. You're just bringing it to the forefront where we can really look at it, and you're putting it in a lens of not only the LGBT world, but some other stuff that's going on with, fetishes and things such as that. One of the things I think that I find really interesting is that you brought this to life from the perspective of a straight guy, right?
Yeah, straight-ish, more or less. Yeah, from the perspective, I guess it is that perspective, but at the same time, the thing is that we want to tell the story of the people that we've known in our lives. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to personify the stories of our closest friends who have maybe not made such great choices or have made great choices, but we just wanted to tell these stories of the people that we care about. And, we were just very lucky to be able to do that in this film and to explore the ambiguous nature of our own sexuality and the ambiguous nature of people's sexuality that we knew very well, close friends of ours. So, yeah, it was just a lot of fun to sort of dive into that realm as far as a narrative is concerned.
Oh, and I love this narrative you just brought forward. And for those of you listening, I know I just threw Dwight kind of that curveball on his sexuality because I didn't know. I knew he was married and everything. But this is where the assumptions start to show up in life. We suddenly assume because someone is married and all this that we get their story. And what I love about what you're doing with the Victorians is you're showing all the different facets of the story. And some of it, we can make the assumptions of what's going on with the characters. And then you throw these interesting twists in, which really to me is where the art begins to truly imitate real life. We make these huge assumptions in real life, and then we find out these other things about people and suddenly realize that humans are humans in so many different facets. So that, to me, is what is fascinating about what you're doing in the Victorian. So were these personal friends that started to become part of the characters that you thought, okay, I'm going to take this one and this one and this one, and we're going to just mix and blend it all together?
Yeah, that's exactly it, And then, obviously, as you get down to the wire, you're sort of mixing sometimes some characteristics into some characters. But for the most part, we're trying to find that fine line of ambiguity. We wanted to explore the sexuality in our characters based on the people that we knew. We wanted to sort of leave it. It's very existential, the way that we tell the story. We wanted to go into places that were sort of new, uncharted territory. We wanted to stay away from the cliche of what we would expect by certain terminology about our sexuality, about what people expect from our sexuality based on what they know about us. You know, I mean, obviously, definitions are very, very important. Definitions are needed so that we can live in a society where, you know, we need to be able to define who we are to a greater or lesser extent so that we are protected, that our rights are protected, that our sexualities are protected, so that our choices are protected. But, you know, definitions, you know, but it doesn't end there. The definitions are just the beginning. And that's sort of what the film is about. It's about kind of exploring beyond the definition of what our sexuality may or may not be.
I think it's interesting, too. I love that you brought up the word ambiguity, because I have been doing a lot of work recently on stages and stuff with more and more people in the transgender world. And that brings us into a whole different, you know, conversation. And I've interviewed a few people that are transgender on the podcast. But a week ago, I was on stage with one, and we had an interesting conversation afterwards where we actually used the word ambiguity of, what if we gave each other permission to be just very ambiguous in who we are, rather than having to know? What if we just let that ambiguity be the norm, rather than, okay, here's your box, here's your box, here's your box. And we realized how much that would be a really fuck up in the mind to have to shift society to thinking that way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, I mean, that's the ultimate freedom, isn't it? You know, not to have to define who we are, really. I mean, or not have to be in a place where we need to do that, where we can sort of play. You know, it's sort of the thing, like when you meet someone and the basic conversation goes down like this. Well, where are you from? Or where are you from? I had a friend that he's an artist that lives here in Amsterdam, and he's very, let's say, antisocial, to be sort of in a nice terminology, you know, but he's a brilliant artist. But he's always, whenever we go out and people ask him where he's from, he always says, I'm from vagina.
I love that.
But the thing is that he tackles it head on, you know, like he doesn't want to explain where he is. He doesn't want to have small talk. He's not interested in that. He's always constantly fighting for the kind of conversation. Now, to my taste, he fights too much, you know, but that's his choice, you know, but he fights to keep himself ambiguous from anyone that he may meet. And I kind of respect that in a way. And at the same time, I think also, you know, it does obviously makes it very exhausting for him at times.
Sure.
But, you know, there's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about being able to maintain that ambiguousness, you know, just outside the definitions. And like you said, it's nice, and there's a real strength in that.
Well, I think the strength comes in, and I'm glad you brought up those questions, because yes, the first time I meet people, it's like, where are you from? What do you do? All this stuff, because we're sorting and sifting. We're having to get them kind of into our lens of the world to go, okay, is this someone I want to continue to have dialogue with, or that I'm interested in, which there is value in that. I mean, let's be truthful. You know, this is part of what makes the world go round, but it also is part of what really fucks everything up in the world too. It's like there's no room for acceptance then.
If we stay locked in that, you know, then we're trapped, you know, and at some point in time, you know, there is a breakout point. And that's what my friend Daniel constantly reminds me of, that, you know, you have to decide that for yourself. You know, there's a point in time where you also must be the fighting artist at all times. I mean, when we're in life, there's always some sort of a fight or a struggle that's before your eyes, socially, you know, economically, you know, and he just makes me aware of that question, you know, at what point in time does politeness get in the way of, lack of a better word, of just being honest and
being transparent,
being creative and taking chances and kind of challenging people, using every opportunity as a social experiment to kind of push yourself. Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line to walk in between, but yeah, I don't know. We're not talking so much about the film, but
but I want to get into it, because I think this is what leads to the film is all these fine lines that you started to cross over to bring the characters to life and then really show life as it is. I mean, you know, for those who haven't seen the trailer or anything yet, it will kind of take you to a place where you go, okay, I got to figure out if this is something I can watch. But also, as you get into it, it's like, yes, I want to, because I'm curious. I want to go in here. I want to find out more about this. And some people might go, oh, no, this isn't real. Well, it's actually probably more real life than some of the, crap we pay $12 or $15 or $18, whatever the going rate in as a theater right now to go see. This is real stuff that's happening, which is what I think is the beauty of what you've done with the Victorians, Dwight.
Yeah. We worked hard to give it an air of verite, of truth, of truthfulness and rawness to the film. We were real big fans of film from the 60s, the New Wave, the French New Wave, and John Cassavetes and Truffaut and all these films that sort of sprung from that era, Easy Rider. I mean, all these films just had a real air of authenticity about them, like they sort of captured a raw moment in time that maybe could not be duplicated and shouldn't be duplicated, at a time when cinema was experimental as much as it was narrative, as though something was happening that they captured that wasn't planned. And in a lot of ways, the Victorians, has that feel. We're caught up in these people's lives, this ensemble cast of people that are crashing and colliding into one another in Amsterdam, trying to discover who they are, trying to get away, trying to kill themselves, trying to discover their sexuality, trying to fall in love, trying to decide what love is. We wanted to hit upon all of these things. It was like a cornucopia of all these things sort of blend together. And, we're very happy. We're very pleased with how it turned out.
Well, I will tell you from what I've seen, what I watched, and I got through most of it, what kept coming up for me is what you kind of just described was this quest that we as humans are always on to find ourselves. We think we're there, and then something comes up, and nope, we're not quite there. So then we start the journey even more. We keep going deeper. But underneath it all is this quest for finding ourselves, but even deeper, finding love, that self-love, that love of others, that love of it. It's all about love and acceptance. And that's the thread that I kept kind of seeing through all the different twists and turns of what's going on with the characters in the movie is there's just this quest to be loved and accepted and be with someone, regardless of whether that someone is right for you or not. And I don't want to give a whole lot away, but I think that's kind of the underlying tone of this whole thing is they're going for that piece of just love me. And as long as you do, I may throw all this other stuff out the window to feel that piece of love.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's the beautiful sacrifice that we make in the moment to find that. Yeah, it's a struggle, and it's a beautiful struggle. And I think that, we managed to capture that a little bit. And the characters, they're looking for love. They are looking for love.
Here's something else I kind of picked up on, too. Maybe this was just me being Mr. Sensitive and Mr. really into my own soul, but I felt like there was probably some huge things that were going on in the filming for the actors and stuff where they actually were, I don't know, it just felt like some of them were actually probably going through some of this stuff themselves as they were portraying these characters. Was that kind of a true assumption?
I think that to a greater or lesser extent, a lot of the actors became very immersed in the characters for sure. They were very, very involved emotionally. I think there was a lot of emotion going on. It was an intense shoot, I can tell you that. Man, it was just a crazy shoot, and to see everybody come together to make this film, I mean, it was something special. It was really...
And we have somebody else here on his team that would love to talk. I keep seeing her.
This is Letitia Miles.
Hello.
My wife. She's the co-writer and the producer.
I'd love to get her take on this, too. Welcome, Letitia, to the podcast.
Hi, it's lovely meeting you as well. I just wanted to say that what was really extraordinary about these actors, that many of them were very young. Our lead actor's 21, the other one's 18. And to see people so young and so incredibly talented and completely devoted and just 100% behind the project was just incredible. I mean, they were just they just were on set all the time. In the hours where they were not supposed to be there, they were actually there as well, helping out. It was incredible. We were so fortunate in that way.
Yeah, we were fortunate,
But I also think this is something about the millennial generation. When they are in, they are in. They're so ready to be doing the thing they want to be doing. And I know I've got two of them in my own household, so I totally get it. I have an 18 and a 21-year-old, and I'm like, when they're really committed, they are committed, and they want to go, and they want to go deep. They want to experience. They want to have. It's more about the experience than what it is they're going to get. Yes, they are materialistic, and they want certain things, but compared to my generation and probably even your generations, they're like sponges. They're like, okay, yeah, if I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this 100%. And I think that may be something that's a little bit unique in that generation than where we were. Yes, we're in, but we were doing it for different reasons. We're doing it because this is our job. This is what we're meant to do. This is what we're expected. Yeah. So what was some of the biggest challenges in the shooting for you guys? I mean, it looks, I love the film. I can't stop talking about it. It's fantastic. But what were some of the challenges as you stepped into these kind of deep, scary spaces?
Just basically everything.
Yeah,
we had 30 days to shoot a film that we should have had at least maybe a month and a half to 2 months to film. We realized when we started off that the shooting schedule, it was our first time around. This was our first film, so the shooting schedule was non-existent, and 15-hour days would be the norm for the next month, with just Sundays off. And I mean, there was a lot of things that happened along the way, but the fact that the talent and the actors were so committed and so involved really motivated everyone to they just set the pace, They set the marching orders, their passion, the actors' passion. You've got a crew and you've got a cast. The thing about it is that, you're always going to have dissension in the ranks. That's just part of independent filmmaking. It doesn't matter, what you're doing. By the second week in, there's going to be, some dissension. But if you have most people that have your back, then you'll do it. You'll make it. You'll get through. They'll carry the weight for everyone else. And that's what you do. That's what happens. And we had most everybody just had our backs, and the actors were just completely committed and excited and really excited about the work and the writing. And it just carried us, it carried us. You just don't want to let, and also when you see these actors and they're so hungry and they're so motivated and they're so passionate about something, the last thing in the world you ever want to do is let them down. I mean, you'll get up at 4 a.m. with 3 hours of sleep, 4 days a week, and you'll just keep doing it because you can't let them down. You won't let them down. No matter what happens, you won't let people down. And I think fear is a great motivator.
It is. But what I love about what you just said is actually so parallel to the LGBTQ coming out journeys, that when you have a core group of people who got your back, you're going to be able to keep going through this journey. And that is the thing that's come up most on this podcast when I ask people at the end of the show to say, well, would you share with someone or what would you give them encouragement? Man, the biggest one is always find your core people, because they're the ones that are going to keep pushing you through. They're going to help you get through this challenge, no matter who else rejects you, who else says you're going to hell, whatever it is around you being LGBTQ. And you just kind of summed it up there, man. It's like, this is the same thing. This is where the parallels of coming out to be LGBTQ, or coming out for your first film, or coming out to make that big move to go do something you want to do rather than corporate America. It's the same journey. It just happens to be in a little bit different lens than the one that we all think of when we think coming out. So it sounds like this was just like so empowering for you personally too. Is there something you learned about yourself throughout the process now that you both have gone through it? Yeah,
it's been a transformative experience. There's no doubt about it. Tish, you want to say something?
I realized that we were right in making this film.
Yeah.
This was an important film to make. This was a film that people need to hear the story of these people who are struggling, people, LGBTQ people, different people who obviously were struggling in their daily lives and trying to find themselves. And all we wanted was to create a piece that people could reflect upon and you could, identify with. Yeah. And that's what we wanted to create. I'm really, really proud of all the team, of all the people who worked so hard, who were so committed and who believed in this. And you had our back, and we're just really excited about the fact that we managed to finish it.
As I watched it, the rawness that I saw in it was those who are of a certain generation, they're going to know Queer as Folk. And it was kind of like there was this Queer as Folk essence to it without all the flash of Queer as Folk. This was like the raw truth. This was like coming from the street. This was being in, Queer as Folk was great. And I love that it came about in our history when it did, because it helped move so much stuff forward. I think what you guys have accomplished is you brought that essence of kind of Queer as Folk, but you came from the real truth. You came from, this is the raw stuff that people should see. And as I said at the top of the hour, it's really about being transparent in a way that I think more films need to be made this way, where let's take away some of the flash of, quote, Hollywood and all that, and let's put it in the real lens of this is real life. This is what's happening,
We want to show real life. We want to show people struggling with their lives, with their sexuality, trying to come to terms with who they were, trying to find people who they loved, trying to be loved. We wanted to show that. And we wanted people to be able to identify with that. It was so important for us,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, why do it? I mean, really. At the end of the day, you're going to put, your life savings, or you're going to put something into something. Then you want to tell a story that is everybody's story in a way. And that's what we wanted to do, And
we did it for all the people that we love, all the different friends, who we've seen suffer, and we did it for ourselves as well. Yeah. It was really important for us.
Yeah, I always love the question when I'm being interviewed, why did you do this? And it's like, well, there's a lot of reasons, but I'm going to be kind of selfish. And I kind of put in that little caveat that I did it for myself first, because this was something I needed to do to get out of myself so that what I did could also help other people. But it came from a little bit of a selfish space. I mean, when I wrote my book, I knew it was like me finally vindicating a whole lot of stuff. But in that movement, I also realized this is going to be a huge thing that's going to impact other people's lives. And I think you guys have hit the home run there as well, that when people see this, it will give that perspective of, wow, this is really a true essence of what can happen in real life with people who are looking for that love and finding it, but finding it through different spaces that some of us go, oh, I would have never known that those people in that arena really still want to be loved too, because we make these stupid ass assumptions about if people are doing this or that or whatever. In fact, it was quite interesting. A week ago, I was on a stage with a transgender individual who I'd only met that evening. And when she spoke, she talked about her life as a sex worker during the time she was trying to figure out what was going on with her in her sexual identity and gender identity and all that stuff. And it was in the lens of her sex work that she unlocked the piece that, oh my gosh, I'm transgender, which then unlocked the piece of how much she should love herself, which then unlocked the piece of I need to get out of being a sex worker, because once I become my truest self in my transgender identity, which is really her true identity, then her self-respect lifted, her self-confidence and everything else lifted. And it was such a beautiful story to witness. But somebody hearing that for the first time, I know the first thing they would do, which I kind of felt that little bump in my own thought process of, oh, sex worker, even though I have a lot of friends that are sex workers, it's always that little like, because there's that perception of, but I'm so glad she went to that space, because it was beautiful to watch this group of college and university students kind of go, okay, we know about this, but now here we are in front of someone who actually just admitted to us, this is what I used to do. And I think that's the raw truths, that when we bring those raw truths that are the taboos to our culture in spaces where they're least expected, it opens the doorway for all of us to kind of go deep in ourselves and go, what does that say about me? Yeah. I think that's kind of what you've done beautifully with the film as well.
It was very well said, We wanted to show a sex worker in our story who was very strong. He was independent. We wanted her to be a modern icon. She's
unapologetic for the decisions that she makes. But at the same time, there's something gnawing at her insides that she can't quite get her hand on. She doesn't owe an explanation to fucking anybody. At the same time, she does need to be loved, like we all need to be loved. And there's a part of her that's fighting and trying to discover her vulnerability. And, that's sort of her journey throughout the film.
Don't you think the power, too, is you just brought up the word unapologetic. And I, when I'm working with individuals in my coaching practice, whether they're coming out or whatever they're doing, that's one of the pillars that I ask them to stand on, is I need you to start to feel comfortable standing on a pillar of being unapologetic for anything. Now, if you hurt somebody, there's a little bit different thing. But what I'm saying is being unapologetic for, decisions you're making or directions you want to go or how you want to be in the world, which is the hardest thing for so many of us as humans to get to, is accepting it's okay to be unapologetic, because we've been told, oh, you need, when you do something, you need to apologize. I think the beauty of being unapologetic is it actually holds hands with confidence. The more you can be strong and unapologetic, the more confident you can be.
And once again, it's also a bit of a fine line. I mean, you've got to be a bastard, but just enough of a bastard to be free. Not too much of a bastard that you're walking all over everybody else, but you've got to be enough of a bastard that yeah, you're not going to let people walk over you at the same time, and you're going to live your life and you're going to be free. You know, there's a fine line in it. And I think it's, you know, yeah, it's interesting when we look at that line and we sort of on either side of it, and we're discovering where we fit in within that. Yeah, and so her and some of the other characters, the line that they walk, it's very palpable, you know, in the story, and as we watch them going through their struggles.
But don't you both think that, too, the fine line is something that each and every one of us has to define for ourselves? Because if we define the fine line by other people's standards, we're not really walking our own fine line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that only occurs when you know who you are, though. Yeah. You define yourself.
For the time being.
Yeah. Until you figure out, okay, I don't really know who I am again now. Let's go redefine this and start over again, you know? I think that's the beauty of the human experience is just when you think you got it figured out, it's like, okay, well, now it's time to go redefine again.
Exactly. But today I'm for sure.
Yes.
Today I'm sure. I'm for 100%.
Yeah. For the next 5 minutes, I'm sure. Well, wait, no. 2 minutes later, no, I'm not sure. So let's start over. That's awesome.
There are things that you can be sure of, though, and you know always. But I think the most important thing is to be true to yourself.
Absolutely.
And that is something that you just know. And once you know it, there's no other way. And if you're true to yourself, then you know that nothing else matters. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
so what's next for the film? Where do you go from here? It's out. Are you doing festivals? What? We're
going to set it on. No, I'm just kidding. What we're going to do? No, we're really excited. We've got the BFI London Film Festival coming up. Yeah, we've entered the film to Cannes Film Festival, but we haven't heard back yet. And then, yeah, it's just the film festival circuit. We've got the Venice Film Festival coming up at the end of summer. But
we're also going to be sending it to various LGBTQ festivals as well.
Yeah.
We're going to be investigating that. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Awesome. But the film's still not even finished. It's just 2 weeks until it's done.
Okay.
The almost final cut, you know.
Yeah.
So... And then, you know, we'll see. But
what's really cool about our film is we've managed to get some really cool indie bands behind us.
Oh, that's really cool.
Interesting, like soundtrack, like
we got some great music involved. It's been a great experience. We had a bit of a competition, and we invited some people to try out to be on the soundtrack. We didn't know we were going to have like 2,000 entries from all these different musicians.
Wow,
it was insane.
But out of all of that work and listening, we really found some beautiful music that works for the film. I mean, we're not obviously judging anybody's music that they sent in for the competition, but that also was much sort of like the casting of the film. So, you know, you're listening to music and trying to find if things work here or work there. We managed to also reach out to a lot of independent musicians and people who, you know, are looking for a voice for their music. And that also has been, once again, an amazing experience to find these people. And on our website, you can see that it says it's the soundtrack section of our website at thevictoriansfilm.com, and you can see there. All the musicians that are attached to the project. So.
What was really interesting is that these bands that we listened to, some of them we didn't pick just because I didn't know until you were making, because you really have to sort of make the music fit to the scene. Yeah. But what was really interesting is that they had such small followings. Yeah. Some of them.
You've got one band on there that's Moth XR, and they're a huge band. And we got in touch with them through a friend of ours, and they were like, "Hey, we'd like to, you know, be involved in the project." And then you've got another band on there who we've got the YouTube channel attached to that's got like 47 views to their song. You know?
That's fantastic.
It's just fucking awesome, you know. I mean, we wanted to be able to do that and to create this opportunity for other bands as well as, you know, to sort of be a grassroots type of a thing and have all walks attached to the project. So it's been very interesting. I don't know, kind of went on a tangent about this.
No, that's okay, because I love it. It just shows another divergence that you put into this to show the diversity of how you approach the entire project, which in the LGBTQ community, it is all about diversity and accepting what comes, you know. And I love that you got one huge band and one little tiny band, because sometimes it is that diverse piece that is what wakes someone up that finally says, oh my gosh, I can really relate to that. And that's why I do these kind of interviews. People think, oh, it's always going to be coming out stories. Well, it is, because what you guys just described was your own coming out to make this beautiful film, to say, hey, we want to do this and we want to show another side. It's a bringing forth a coming out story that maybe somebody's going to see and go, that is me. That's my life, and it's okay for me to be who I am. And that's why I truly believe these stories are so important to share. So as we wrap it up here, I want to ask you both a question, which I always ask, but since both of you are now here. So if you could leave some advice for anyone who is like struggling to be, and Letitia already kind of said this, just be yourself, which is beautiful. But if they're struggling, whether they're struggling to come out of the closet as a, LGBTQ person, an aspiring filmmaker, a musician, what would be some advice you'd love to leave people listening? Because I know whatever you say is going to apply to so many different situations.
Yeah, I guess this is going to sound a bit crazy and a bit harsh, but, gather all your fuck yous together, just be, just try and just be as strong as you can, I guess. In any situation, sometimes fierceness is what's needed, and just be fierce and be bold, because we only get one life, right? And so, the idea is to work towards that, being bold and being our true selves, whoever that may be for the next 5 minutes.
I don't know if you looked at my website or not, but that's just amazing, because my mantra for my website, the new podcast that's coming soon, is called Life Uncloseted, but the tagline, the mantra for it is, it's simple, be bold. That's what it's all about. So what about you, Leticia? What do you have to share?
I think that the most important thing is just, once you know something and you know for sure, then you just have to be in the moment and just keep on fighting every single day, believing in yourself and never giving up. Waking up in the morning and knowing that it's probably going to be difficult, but just keep on fighting, because every single inch that you build is going to be that yard of yourself. And every single battle that you fight is worth it, because it makes you stronger. Everything that destroys you is good, because at the end of the day it's going to make you a stronger person. And that's what I learned from my life. And I think that's the only lesson I could give.
You guys have been awesome. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to do this. So we're going to have the website and everything up. But one more time, do a shout out for the website where everybody can gather information about the Victorians. Yeah, so it's thevictoriansfilm.com. And there we've also got some blogs as well about the film stories that took place behind the scenes, all the madness of the making of the film here in Amsterdam, as well as all the information about the film and all the different stories and all the characters and actors involved. And
you also wrote a blog that you're going to be posting.
We have a new blog coming out. It's called I Want to Take You to a Gay Bar. It's a story of how I managed to woo our lead actor, Sam White, into coming to Location Scout at the major location at the gay bar that we filmed here in Amsterdam. And basically how we went there and how we met with the owner and all the interesting situations that ensued during the leading up to filming there. Yeah, it's a lovely story. It's a little bit of cross-pollination, and it's about flirtations that happen between men who may or may not know that they're straight or gay. So it's kind of a funny little story, but I think that, we're really excited to be posting that one soon as well. But
it's awesome. Yes, please do. I'll share it with our listeners for sure. So, well, I just want to say thank you again for making time for us, being on the Coming Out Lounge, sharing your story, and just creating this beautiful film. I wish you nothing but the best successes. Say goodbye for this time on the Coming Out Lounge. And I'm Rick Clemens, the Coming Out Coach, and never stop stepping out, stepping up, and stepping into living your powerful fucking truth. Take care, everyone.
Nice one, Rick. Nice one.
Hey, Closet Dwellers and Coming Out Lounge listeners. I wanted to invite you to check something out. For all the years that I've been a coming out coach, one thing I've learned is sometimes people come to do the work with me and they only need a little bit of help to get over something very particular and very important to them. It could be reconciling their religion and sexuality. Maybe it's learning how to have the difficult conversations where they say, I'm gay. Possibly it could be, oh my God, I'm out of the closet, but now how do I do this same-sex dating and mating sort of thing? Well, what I can tell you is throughout the years, there are common things that show up over and over and over again. And what I've heard most from my clients and listeners of the podcast is, I want a way to work with you just on these particular subjects. Yay, I'm so excited because I've taken the action and I've made this possible. So how do you find out about these particular programs? You go to thecomingoutcoach.com, or if you're on the show page right now listening to the podcast or have just listened to the podcast, over to the right-hand side of the podcast description and everything is an icon that says one-on-one coaching sessions. Click on that button, you'll be taken to a page that describes each of the different 9 sessions I'm offering. There are one-on-one sessions that we can do via phone, Skype, or even FaceTime. They're very action-oriented. We go right to the topic that you want to talk about. And each of these sessions also includes a copy of my book, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay. So what more could you ask for? You get me for 90 minutes devoted to you, plus my book. So go check it out. See if there's something that could help you as you step out, step up, and step in to living your powerful truth. Take care. I'm Rick Clemens, the Coming Out Coach. I look forward to working with you.
You've just experienced the Coming Out Lounge. Go online to www.comingoutlounge.com to learn more and tune in again next week for more stories and tips for being true to yourself.